hello everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining on a weekend, especially Saturday evening, which are precious. Nandita Sugandhi here, your presenter for the session and co-host as well. I am currently employed at Mondelez International as productivity manager, and I have done my masters in management from IIT Bombay, and currently I'm pursuing another degree in project management from IIM Mumbai. So, this is about me and my background. Today, the topic that we have picked that is how to crack aptitude tests, and I feel that a lot of people will find it very relevant because aptitude tests come in handy whether you want to join a good college and you're very young, or you are in the middle of your career and you either want to just join a company or you want to make a switch from your current organization to a different organization. Usually in the Indian market, an aptitude test is a gold standard for filtering out the candidates, so it's very important for us to know how to approach an aptitude test. My agenda today would be I'd give you a brief about what an aptitude test is all about. Why is it being taken? What are the qualities that they are trying to see in the candidate? What are the sections which are used to see those qualities? That way, you will be able to understand and get into the mindset of the employer. And after that, I will just go through some basic types of questions which are there in each and every section of an aptitude test, and then I'll share some basic tips and techniques that I have learned over time with you and some suggestions from my end. At the end of it, I also have some reference material for you, not material but rather suggestions where you can refer to prepare for your aptitude tests. So this should be the agenda for the day. Sounds good? Perfect. So I'll be sharing my screen and let me know when my screen becomes visible to you. So the topic for the day is cracking aptitude tests. Apologies. Let me put my mobile on silent. Yeah. So the topic for the day is cracking aptitude tests. Now, why are aptitude tests so popular, or why are they taken all together? Anywhere in the Indian market, but yes, anywhere else. It's a very common way of preliminarily doing a skill assessment of a candidate. And by preliminary, I would say they don't test your advanced capabilities like leadership, and I would say situational decision making, which would be done during the course of an interview most likely, or over rounds of multiple interviews. But basic thought process and approach is something which could be assessed by aptitude tests, and it works as an elimination procedure. Imagine the sheer population that we have and number of eligible employees that we have. Wherever there is a vacancy available, you would have umpteen number of people applying for it, and so you need an effective method where you can assess everyone on the same level, a homogeneous assessment, so to say, and at the same time use this as a tool to eliminate those who do not perform as per standards as well. So it works as a very effective elimination procedure. It's not a selection criteria that is done individually, handpicked via interviews. It's generally an elimination procedure, and it happens in the early rounds of a recruitment process or a selection process. It can be dispensed easily to a large set of individuals simultaneously, even within limited number of resources. Even if you have one or two interviewers or invigilators, it could be imparted very easily to multiple people. 50 candidates can fill in a hall and take the test together, and they are being assessed all together at the same level. Multiple skill levels also can be assessed in a time bound manner. Most importantly, it's a time bound thing. It would be 1 to 3 hours long, not more than that. Generally, aptitude tests tend to be small. They are 30-minute to 1 hour aptitude tests, and that is sufficient enough to understand what kind of candidate is applying and whether they are good enough to go to the next stage or not. And for these benefits or features that the aptitude test has, it's a tool of choice for elimination or selection of candidates in the industry. Now, so this is the purpose of selecting through an aptitude test. But where are they being used currently? To any candidate who is applying for a course or a program at any of the prestigious universities, they would have an aptitude test as a part of their examination. Generally, even your exams, CAT, ZAT, or other examinations of the sorts, where you get an entrance to, a management institute, or even your examination at national level, be it banking or others, they're all some variant of aptitude tests. Any candidate who's applying for any role in an organization might also face an aptitude test, so it's a gold standard for candidate assessment. Now, what skills are assessed via which section? Firstly, I would just want to say that an aptitude test is not a unit in itself. There are many subcomponents. Like there are in a matter there are molecules, and then there are atoms, and then there are subatomic particles. That the same way in examination as well, in this test as well, there are various subsections, and those subsections also have different types of questions, which I want to touch upon today so that you understand what you're fighting against. Now, what are the skills which are under assessment? The most important skill which is being assessed usually is logical approach and reasoning. How does the candidate think, whether they are of a sound mind or not? Can they analyze something and take a decision? That is done by a section called as logical reasoning. uh, just a call out here, the test itself actually can be split into sections, or the questions from these various sections could be randomly placed anywhere. Does not mean that these sections do not exist. It's just that which type of question assesses what kind of skill, so we are going by that. Now, the second skill which is usually assessed is an analytical skill. Whenever you are applying for a course, a degree course, or you're going for a business, eventually you want to be a professional. And in professional life, you have to be good with numbers. At least you have to have your basic analytical capabilities set. And for that, quantitative aptitude and data interpretation are two sections which are very, very important, which actually analyze the capability of your candidate. Then third skill which is under assessment is verbal or language skills. Now, it would be surprising to know, but once you reach management or leadership positions, you realize that hard skills has its own place, but soft skills are equally, if not more important. It is very important that you have those communication capabilities, so that you can understand the message another person is giving to you, you interpret it correctly, you then formulate your own message, and you give it to others, and others understand you the way you want them to understand your message. It's very, very important that you're able to impart your messages well as well, and that is done by the tool of language. So your verbal skills are required to be good in order to be able to be an effective communicator. So, how effectively can you do communication clubbed with analytical and logical skills makes for a good employee. And this verbal and language skills are assessed in your verbal reasoning section. Vocabulary is a subsection of verbal reasoning. So, if you want to say something, if you don't get one word, or one word is not fitting the context, you need an alternate word. So, you need to have a wide vocabulary to effectively give your message. And so vocabulary is also important. And then there is data interpretation also, which requires some verbal or language skills. We'll come to what data interpretation is, but it usually involves data in paragraph format, in text format. And so there also it's very important to analyze things correctly, which is related to language. Then one skill which comes under assessment, that is problem solving. Now, problem solving is being assessed in data interpretation as well as logical reasoning section. Problem solving is very, very important, because in real life scenarios, things are not straightforward. Otherwise, they could automate anything and everything, but that's not true. Human mind is needed, because situations arise which are unique and they need unique decisions. And so, problem solving becomes very, very important. Even a small task, like we have run out of space in our warehouse and we have to store the inventory somewhere, where else we can keep it, even that is a part of problem solving. And you need to have an understanding of the business to be able to solve it. So your logical reasoning should be effective. To know the inventory levels, your data interpretation should be effective. These are very real life scenario where these skills might be applied, and therefore problem solving is one facet which is being assessed by anyone who is assessing a potential employee. And then another form is another assessment section is general awareness. General awareness because those people who are on top of, or at least who try to be in sync with what's happening in day-to-day life in the world, uh, they tend to make decisions, or they can make decisions which are future ready. It's very important to do that. So a bit of general awareness is required, and usually there are questions which capture that. We will get into more details now, section by section. So let's start off with logical reasoning. And by the way, feel free to please put any questions that you have in chat, and at the end of the session, I'd be happy to address them. Yeah, so logical reasoning. Basically, this section is telling a candidate, tell me, how do you think? Logical reasoning is a session which assesses reasoning, pattern identification abilities, problem solving abilities, and any situations analysis and how to use your problem solving skills to get out of it. It is a critical must have for candidate, and therefore it is one of those sections which usually have the highest cutoff percentages in the paper. Now, what are the types of questions with logical reasoning includes? And what I'll do is I'll go one by one with the type of questions, and I'll explain what the question types are. And in future sessions, if you all want, then we can maybe pick up the question types and we can have some sample. This time I have just covered the types of questions so that we have a repository of it. So whoever is preparing for entrance examinations or applying for a new job can go through this slide or refer back to this conversation and kind of prepare well for their upcoming aptitude test. Now, the first type of question which is from the logical reasoning section is data sufficiency. I'll give you an example. uh, there are four people, A, B, C, D. If a is if a is if B is taller than only A, and C is taller than only, and C is shorter than only D, then do you think that this data is sufficient to tell who is the tallest of them all? Okay, so yeah, it's sufficient. And then there would be questions like, is one statement sufficient? Is A statement sufficient? Is B statement sufficient? Are both statements sufficient? Or is, if nothing is sufficient? So basically try to understand that whatever information you have been given, whether it is enough or not to be able to answer the question which has been attached to the set of statements. So these type of questions are called as data sufficiency questions. They're tricky, they are tricky, and they will need some practice. And I would say that to go over specifically this type of question, do ensure that you do at least 20 to 30 questions of these type and see the answers and also see the logic behind it, so that you can establish that logic in your mind, that how to approach these type of questions. Second type of question is called as coding decoding. So generally what happens is, it's like they're inventing a new language. For example, A, B, C, D, E, F. A now becomes M, B now becomes N. So everything is an alphabet. 13th position ka alphabet is now replacing the current alphabet. So this is a code now. X plus 13 is a code now. Now they will just establish the rule with one example, and then they will give you a word and say, now convert it into this code. Now tell me, what does it mean? So this is called as coding decoding kind of questions. They are fairly easy. Use a paper and pen, and if you will practice them long enough, you will, even if you don't practice them, you will be able to solve them. If you practice them enough, you will be able to solve them faster. Same goes for alphanumeric series. So it's a mix of numbers and letters. And generally there is a pattern. It's a part of pattern identification, and it is also a type of basic IQ check. So whether a person is able to identify patterns or not, it's that test. There are puzzles. There can be various puzzles, and may or may not have straightforward answers. They can be word puzzles. You have to identify an animal, a city, whatever it might be. There can be dice based questions. Dice is the pasa which you use to play games, right, which has six faces. So you have to identify the face of the dice by whatever indicators that they give. So there can be different types of puzzle questions. That is where your logical reasoning is being tested. There is pattern recognition, which I have told. There can be setting arrangements, and setting arrangements are incredibly interesting. There is a huge potential for them to go wrong. My recommendation is setting arrangement do only if you have practiced them enough, or if you have enough time for them. If it's a simple 5 to 7 people sitting in 5 to 7 chairs kind of arrangement, it should not take you more than 2 minutes to attempt it. So if it's taking a lot of time, let it go, attempt it at the end. It is also easy to kind of mess this up and make a mistake. So always double check your sitting arrangement questions. So what kind of questions do they ask? There are 10 people and there are 10 chairs. Chairs are numbered 1 to 10. They are put in a circular fashion. Now X is sitting next to Y, counterclockwise, fifth position from Y, there is a person sitting called as M. Now you have to identify the entire arrangement, and then they will ask who is sitting next to whom. They will ask questions on that. So these are called as sitting arrangement questions. They are generally as a part of a caselet. A caselet is basically a paragraph where you will be given some information. You solve that information, and then there will be 4 to 5 questions next to it. That entire set of questions along with that paragraph is called as caselet. So sitting arrangements are great to give for logical reasoning caselets as well. Then there is a part called as critical reasoning. So there will be questions like, um, apple is a fruit. All fruits are sweet. Therefore, apple is sweet. Is that true or false? So this is a part of critical reasoning. These kind of questions where you have a statement, then a supportive statement, and then you have a conclusion. And so critical reasoning is, it's also a pattern of syllogism, which is again a type of critical reasoning question. So this is called as critical reasoning. uh, then you have date based questions. So you have to remember uh, what are leap years. All leap years are divisible by 4. What if the date is so and so, then after 358th day, what would be the date and what would be the day? So you have to understand the patterns of the weeks as well. So these also come in date based questions, also come in logical reasoning. Then there are blood relations. Blood relations is like X is uncle of Y's sister. So what is the relation between the sister and uncle? That way you will have blood relation questions, and you have to answer them. I think Indians are an expert at it because we tend to have huge families, and they are generally very easy and quick to solve. They can be done verbally. So whenever you see a blood relation question, try to attempt it. uh, then there are ranking orders. If there is a class of 30, and XYZ have these and these marks, then what is the rank? That way. Then you have syllogisms. I have just given one example on syllogism in critical reasoning. Then there are decision making questions. You will be given a situation, and then you have to assess the situation and then take a decision. Now, these questions are great for understanding whether a particular employee is cultural fit or not for an organization. And sometimes, in cultural fit kind of aptitude test, what happens is the same questions will be reworded and repeated multiple times by an organization. And there are FMCGs like HUL who do this. They will multiple times ask the same question to candidate to understand their psychology and their decision making, and see whether they are a cultural fit for the organization or not. So be very careful when you're asking such when you're answering such questions. You have to be consistent in your answers as well. uh, Deductive reasoning, you have to you have been given a set of facts, and from there you have to identify a fact which is not mentioned, but it can be derived from the facts which have been given. For example, uh, crow a crow is black. All birds fly. A crow flies. So your deductive reasoning is a crow is a bird. So you have to identify facts from a given set of facts. And then there are questions based on assumptions. So these are some types of questions which are there in logical reasoning. They are like small brain teasers. They usually are not very complex, easy to solve, and usually this section has a high cutoff. For example, out of 100%, you have to score a minimum of 50% to be able to, kind of qualify for an aptitude test. So I would say, maybe do not spend too much time on the questions in this section, but attempt enough of them to be able to clear the cutoff. And they are very easy and fun to solve. It's like a brain gym, it's a brain exercise, and it actually strengthens your thinking and decision making. So quite a fun thing to do. Now coming to quantitative aptitude, do you have what it takes to support a business? Do you have that aptitude? Do you have the quantitative thinking that it needs? Can you play with numbers? That's important. Now, quant is a section which assesses the comfort of the candidate with numbers. In any business situation, numbers should be one's friend, and one should be numbers' friend. It is much easier if a person is very conversant with numbers. Now, what kind of questions do quantitative aptitude incorporates? Mixtures and allegations. What is mixtures and allegations? Mixtures is basically ratio. So, uh, for example, I have a sugar syrup in which 30% is water, 50% is sugar. Now I want to add some water to it, so it becomes half and half sugar and water. How much water should I make? Add to it so that it becomes half and half sugar water. These kind of questions where you have to use the concept of ratios, and understand what kind of mixtures there are. So these are called as mixtures and allegations. Then there are pure percentage and ratio questions. These are basic mathematical concepts, so I will not spend a lot of time on it. There are age based questions. There are averages. There are moving averages. There is LCM and HCF, all of it which we have learned in our middle school, probably a lower middle school. There is probability questions can be tricky if they are combined with verbal question, like there is a lot of paragraph and text associated with it. Always double check the question first, read it, ensure that you have understood it correctly, you have not missed out any fact, you have interpreted it correctly, then start solving the question. And also redouble check the question after you have attempted it. Before you submit your paper, probability has runs a high probability of being wrong if you don't attempt it properly. Profit and loss, that's again a basic mathematical slash economics concept which is being used in quantitative aptitude. There are questions on time, questions on compound interest. There are some basic formulas for compound interest which I would recommend that you would learn before you attempt any aptitude test. Just go through the formulas and try and memorize it, it's not very difficult. Permutation and combination, again just like probability, permutation and combination also runs a risk of going wrong because of interpretation. So double check your questions, and double check your answer after you have solved the question before submitting. Analyze it properly, and if you feel that you are confused, you are in doubt, do not attempt that question if there is negative marking. Then there are boards and streams, which is basically usually linear algebra, solved by linear algebra. There's number theory, logarithm, surds and indices, uh, time, speed, and distance. Again, basic math, trigonometry and height. It is specialized for those who find it difficult or who find quant intimidating. My recommendation is you try to go through base. You try to get the basic cutoff. You can let go and do not study trigonometry or surds and indices or logarithm, these three chapters or these three topics. Even if you let them go and do the rest of them properly, you will be able to clear any cutoff of any aptitude exam that you have. So even if you're not a hardcore mathematics lover, you can still clear the quant sections. There are problems on margins. Margins, I would say the percentage which is given to, for example, a cloth maker gets a cloth in 60 rupees and sells it in 100 rupees. What is the margin that they are getting? That's 40%, right? Which is what is going in their pocket, which is their margin. So these kind of questions are there. And then pipes and cisterns are a very particular type of problem which usually works on volumes. Okay, so there will be different types of cistern, or there will be different types of vessel. It could be conical, cylindrical, spherical, hemispherical. So you will need to know the formula for their radius, for their height, for their volume, and then you have to correlate that volume, and you have to work with ratios as well. Usually pipes and cisterns question also are very complicated, and they take a very long time to solve. So if you feel like this question will become complicated in your first run of paper where you are solving the easy ones, do not attempt this question. Do it only when you have spare time at your hand. Do not waste time for other easy questions by attempting pipes and cisterns. Then you have a section called as data interpretation. Can you see what is being shown? Can you use it to your advantage? So that is basically the kind of assessment that they are doing. Okay. Data interpretation, so it is usually incorporated by a set of questions. So there will be a paragraph where they will set a situation or they will set a concept, and then there will be some data could be represented in either form. It could be textual data, it could be visual data, and there will be a set of questions associated with it. So the candidate has to basically assess the data or analyze the data and then come up with solutions using either quantitative or LR methods. It is an advanced skill section. The types of data representations in DI include bar graph, tabular data, line charts, pie charts. These four are different types of different ways of representing the same data, but in different formats visually. Okay. Or there can be a caselet. A caselet is where the data is put into words. A caselet is a little intimidating because you have to ensure that you write everything down. This is the data that you're getting. You analyzed or interpreted it right. And then there are no missing gaps. There is no missing data. So analysis and interpretation becomes very important in caselets. And then there are missing data questions. So there are certain questions where they will give you a set of data, but then you realize, hey, this data is missing. But from the data which has been given, it is easy to find out the value of the missing data. And the set of questions actually ask, what is this missing data? So these are various questions of data interpretation. It's an advanced section, it's a difficult section, and usually they don't the cutoffs for this section also does not run very high, especially in comparison to quant and LR. Coming to verbal reasoning, now do you have the communication skills to survive? That's the question that they are asking. As I have explained earlier, can you get the message that someone is trying to communicate to you? Can you make your own decisions, and can you give your message effectively to other person the same way you mean it? That's the entire purpose of verbal reasoning. uh, Now, verbal reasoning assesses the command of a candidate over a language. It assesses their skills to extract meaning out of text, analyze it, apply that text to real life scenarios in the context which has been given in the paper, and then come up with logical conclusions. It is very important to have a good vocabulary as well, because with good vocabulary, you can communicate your thoughts more effectively. Now, what are the types of questions in verbal reasoning? They include reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is where they will give you a big piece of prose, maybe a 200 word piece of paragraphs, a couple of paragraphs. You have to read it, and then you have to, from there, you have to extract facts and you have to answer the questions. So that is called as reading comprehension. There can be analogies. So, what is similar to what? Basically, this is a similarity test between two sets of texts. There is cause and effect kind of questions. There is sentence equivalence. So if there is a sentence A, for example, I say I love you, and I say you are loved by me. A and B were equivalent sentences because they meant the same thing. So Sentence equivalence is a type of question that you have. There can be text completion type of questions where a little bit of grammar comes in, and therefore it's important to practice this section. Verbal reasoning is a section which has to be practiced thoroughly before attempting. And as English, usually the tests are in English, and English is not our mother tongue. So a lot of people do not have their grammar setting in their gut, and they have to actively think about it. And for that very reason, I think whoever is attempting an aptitude test should be practicing this a lot. Text completion, what kind of verb, what kind of adverb will come in here, uh, verification of truth. So they will give sentence A, sentence B, and just see whether they are complementing or contradictory, and basis that you analyze whether it is true or not. So there are verification of truth kind of questions. There can be premises and conclusions. They'll give you a condition, and then you have to make a conclusion out of it, and then out of given four conclusions, select which one is the right conclusion. Certainly there are questions directly on vocabulary, synonyms, antonyms, and of the likes. And then you have the last section, but very important section, which is general awareness. Are you up to speed with the world? And those who are competing should be on top of what's happening in the world so that they can take more effective decisions. And that's the entire purpose of having a general awareness section. Now, this is to assess how much in touch is a candidate with the world. And it's an important aspect of leadership because leadership thinks ahead of curve. And so for thinking what lies ahead of curve, they have to know where the curve is, right? They have to know what's happening in the world, and they have to take timely decisions, and therefore the general awareness section comes in. Usually the types of questions include, just give me a minute, I might have to plug in my PC. My battery is running low. Just give me a minute. So the types of questions may include factual questions. Facts can be static, facts can be dynamic. For example, the earth revolves around the sun is a static fact. It will not change in our lifetime. But a dynamic fact would be who is the president or prime minister of India, right? Because this fact will keep on changing with time, with elections, and with appointments. Same thing goes for current affairs. Current affairs come under dynamic facts. Science and social sciences. So there can be pure science, physics, chemistry, basic chemistry, or there can be geography, history, and civics based questions, basic social sciences. Now, what's a good way to prepare for general awareness? There is no shortcut to it. First thing, for preparing general awareness, you have to study, you have to read. One good habit that people who want to sit for an aptitude test and for an interview, they should read the newspaper daily. That will cover for their current affairs and their dynamic facts. For static facts, they can take any good reference book which covers general awareness for competitive examinations and just go through it. Attempt it. You will not be able to remember everything. You should not mug it up, but just solve those questions, see those answers. You will retain enough information at the end of it to be able to clear an aptitude test. But at least do one book for general awareness cover to cover and attempt the questions in there. Now, what are the general cutoffs of the sections, and how do you know after you have attempted the paper whether you did good enough or not? Will you get selected or not? Logical reasoning and quantitative aptitude are one of the fundamental sections, and they usually are easy and run higher cutoffs, which is usually 50% or above. This is of an average hardness paper of an average entrance exam. Obviously, entrance exam to entrance exam, these cutoffs will vary, but a general tendency is 50% or above is good. Verbal reasoning 40% or above is good, and the sole reason for this is because English is not the mother tongue of Indians. Data interpretation. So usually there are 4 to 5 sets of data interpretation of 5 questions each. If you are able to attempt 2 or 3 and you are confident solidly that you have attempted 2 and they are perfect, that means that you have achieved 30-35% of cutoff. That is enough to get you through DI cutoffs. And then general awareness cutoffs usually run very low. Unfortunately, that's because people do not have good GK. I am myself, a culprit of not having a great GK. But general awareness cutoffs usually run the lowest, 20 to 30%. And so you save these questions for last Do not waste your time on general awareness questions. And in negative marking, whenever you have confusion, do not mark those questions where you feel like you may be wrong or you surely don't know the answer. So these are the average cutoffs which are there. Now, some types of paper. So what I'll do now is I'll bifurcate the types of paper so that you understand your approaches. When you're attempting the paper, how should you attempt these types of paper? And then we will go for some tips and then the references. Now, there are two types of paper by difficulty level. First is a speed test, and then second is an advanced level test, which is your more difficult test. Speed tests usually tend to be easy, and they can be usually verbally solved. There are trick questions, they are simplistic questions, there is a set method to solve that, and therefore they can be done very fast. So if you would realize that it's a 60-minute paper and there are 100 questions, and you would see that the questions are very simple one liners, you know that it's a speed test. The cutoffs will run high and you have to quickly solve between 45 seconds to 60 seconds per question. So you just analyze looking at the number of question, the type of question in your first reading of the paper itself, that whether it's a speed test or advanced test, because your strategy to attempt the paper during the paper will depend on what kind of paper it is. Now in speed test usually quant cutoffs have a tendency to run higher than normal. They can go as high as 75%. So in speed test, just ensure that you attempt maximum quant possible. It is usually for mid to entry level jobs, and it's very practice based. So if your speed improves with practice, and if you don't practice enough, you might have a high accuracy but you don't have a high enough speed. You will do a perfect paper but you will not meet the cutoff. So practice is important in speed test. In advanced test, there can be the requirement is of accuracy. You don't need to score a lot, but whatever you do not get negative marks. So advanced tests are more critical in terms of long term thinking. They are difficult questions. These are the kind of questions probably you might not have encountered before. There is a careful planning requirement for it. They're more reasoning based, so you would see a heavier weight on sections of logical reasoning and data interpretation. There will be more paragraphs, set based questions, more textually heavy. It is usually for mid to high level jobs, and it's a high risk high reward kind of program. Per question, on an average you will have to invest much more time. It may be 3 to 4 minutes per question, but it is very planning based. But if you get it correct, you are that much closer to your cutoff. So it's a high risk high reward kind of game. Plan very very carefully. If there is an advanced test, attempt those questions which you feel confidently you will be able to solve. So these are the types of paper by difficulty level. There is a further bifurcation which you would have to keep in mind before attempting a question paper. What is the purpose of paper? By they want to test your speed of thought, which is a small speed test, or it's a stamina test, which is longer in duration. Anything between 1.5 hour to 3 hour, which requires you to think constantly, is a stamina test. So you should actually practice before the exam, sitting and constantly solving the paper for at least for 3 hours, so that you know that you don't get tired while solving the questions. Otherwise, your accuracy drops down by the time your paper gets over. And then third one is cultural fit, and there you would see a lot of psychological type of questions where you have to take decisions, and the same questions might be asked multiple times in different forms. So they are just trying to assess the candidate is a good cultural fit for the organization or not. Then there can be questions by there can be a bifurcation of types of paper by section, whether it is different section, quant is separately given, LR is separately given, or there is randomized aptitude test. There is just 1 to 60 questions and you don't know what section question is going to be which one. That's perfectly fine. Just read through the paper once. Take your first 10 minutes, invest your first 10 minutes in reading the paper, and that will set the tone for next 40-45 minutes on how do you perform. So it's very important to just go through and see what the pattern of the paper is. Or it can be by mode of test. So if it's a paper based test, then you will have an OMR sheet. In that also you have to keep note of things like take a thick pen so that you don't take a lot of time in filling the OMR. It has weight. Or you take a pencil. If it's a pencil based filling, it's required to be filled by pencil, then you don't sharpen your pencil too much. Keep 4 or 5 pencils with you so that you don't spend time in sharpening your pencil in the middle of the test. So all of these can be small suggestions to cut time and save time. If it's a digital paper, usually these are MCQs, aptitude test. So then it's just a click on the option and tick the option, that kind of question. So that's by the mode of test. So these are the different types of paper, and I have told you about the different approaches that you could use in these types of paper. Now, some tips for prepping and attempting. When to prepare? It's a continuous learning process. Even if you are in a job today, I would still recommend take some time out for yourself every day, read the newspaper, add a few words in your vocabulary, keep learning, because it's a continuous learning process. You never know when you will come across an aptitude test. How to prepare for general awareness? Read newspaper, get a good GK book, try to solve it end to end. Whenever you're doing the surfing on internet, don't waste your time on social media. That is also important to have some entertainment, but do some knowledgeable surfing as well. It feels good as well. How to prepare for LR or quantitative aptitude? For quant, there are few things, unfortunately, which have to be remembered, and there is no other option to it. You have to remember the basic tables till 20. You have to remember basic mathematical formulae. A plus b square, a plus b cube. You have to remember squares and cubes of numbers till 30. If you are actively trying for an exam, it's good to remember them, and then practice a lot. Practice, practice, practice. There's no way out. The more you practice, the faster you will become, and you will get through speed tests just like that. Now, how to prepare for verbal reasoning or vocabulary? Try to learn 5 new words every day. When you learn words, learn them by their word roots. Take a good reference and solve it through with reasoning. Try to understand whatever is the answer. If you have put the correct answer, fine. If you have not put the correct answer, look at the reasoning as to why this was the correct answer and try to internalize it. That's very, very important. So, these are the tips for prepping for different sections. Now, how do you approach your paper? Solve the paper in sweeps rather than one question at a time. तो ऐसा मत करिएगा कि you get the paper and at one shot you attempt the question, you start attempting the question. After the first question, you don't know what's the second question, and you're just solving it, because that way you might finish only one, like you might be completing first half of your entire time, and you might be only at the 10th question because you're doing each and every one of it. No, first take 10 minutes to read, strategize, tick those questions which you want to attempt in the first sweep, which is verbally done, 45 to 50, 60 seconds per question. Solve them, then again do a second sweep from the first question till the end, and do those average questions. And if you still have time, then do the difficult ones, then do the, and then you solve everything. So solve your paper in sweeps. It's like you do scrum in agile, right? Identify whether it's a speed test or an advanced test, and that way set your target questions. Which ones will you solve first? Pick the ones that you like to attempt. uh, if there are data interpretation questions and there are caselets, each caselet will have 4 to 5 questions. Set target time. So usually caselets take more time to be solved. If there are 5 questions, it will not take 5 minutes, it will take maybe 10 minutes. You make a target that in 12 minutes I will solve these questions. You keep your clock in front of you. If you solve it in 12 minutes, fine. If you don't solve it in 12 minutes, you do just 3 out of 5, leave it at that. Attempt the rest of it. If you have time again later on, come back to it, solve the rest of the 2 questions. Do not waste your time more than what you have planned for on caselets. Try to solve as much verbally as possible, and for that you will have to do practice in quant. Do average hardness questions in second sweep, and you should have done 3 sweeps by the end of the paper. Each sweep will be longer than previous. Easiest question will take least time to solve, and so as you go per sweep or per attempt, your time will become longer because you are doing more and more tough questions every sweep. Never submit the paper before time. If there are 100 questions, you have attempted all 100 of them, you have 20 minutes left, do not submit your paper and go. Sit till the very end. You never know, you realize that I have not interpreted this question correctly, you reread that question and you correct it. So use the entire time which is allocated to you, because it's your right and your privilege to be able to do that. Recheck your questions before submitting, but don't overthink and change answers frequently because you are in doubt. Be careful of the marking scheme. If you have negative marking, do not try to attempt every question. If you have doubt, do not attempt that question. If there is no negative marking, attempt everything. Ensure that you attempt everything, because everyone will do that. It will not be fair to you if you don't attempt everything. Even if you don't know the answer, attempt something. Generally, 2 out of 5 caselets attempted in BI with confidence is good. Try and attempt all verbal reasoning questions because they don't need calculations. If there is no negative marking, if there is negative marking, then try to attempt the maximum possible. 70-80% attempt should be there in BR. In general awareness, you just attempt that much question, that many questions which you need to clear the cutoff, and a little bit to boost your total score, but do not waste too much time on it. Save it for the last. A lot of time it happens that, array is answer, I just remember it, if I keep thinking it will come to me, but it doesn't come and you waste a lot of time on it. Don't do that for general awareness. The general awareness topics, cutoffs usually tend to run very low. So just try to clear cutoff and rest is fine. Avoid attempting decimals question. That's a personal recommendation that I have. Usually fractions are easy to handle. Decimals are difficult. So if unless you convert your decimals into ratios or fractions, do not attempt a pure decimals question. It's not worth your time. So just leave it. And then I have a few resources here. This PPT will anyways be circulated, but a few references that I have shared for preparing for aptitude for entrance examinations, or for employer interviews. These are good. I find Word Power Made Easy by Norman Lewis is an excellent resource. Whether you are attempting any exam or not, everyone should read it. It's a brilliant approach to language. And then a few of them, please feel free to have them, read them, solve them end to end, and nothing can stop you. And this is where I reach the end and am open to questions.